Today we are taking a close look at an important development from the global foreign exchange market involving the US dollar and the Vietnamese Dong. While this update is centered on Vietnam's currency, it also provides valuable insight into the broader direction of the US dollar and international currency markets. For followers of the Iraqi Dinar, understanding these global trends is essential because movements in the world's reserve currency often influence investor sentiment, commodity prices, and monetary conditions across emerging economies, including Iraq. The latest market data shows that the US dollar weakened slightly against the Vietnamese Dong during Thursday morning trading. Vietcombank, one of Vietnam's largest commercial banks, reduced its selling price for the US dollar by approximately 0.04%, bringing the exchange rate to 26,450 Vietnamese Dong per dollar. Meanwhile, activity in Vietnam's unofficial or black market remained relatively stable, with the dollar trading around 26,110 Dong. Although these changes may appear modest on the surface, they reflect a broader picture of cautious global currency trading rather than a dramatic shift in economic fundamentals. Looking beyond Vietnam, international currency markets also displayed a generally calm trading environment. According to global market reports, the Japanese yen struggled to maintain the gains it had achieved following recent intervention efforts by Japanese authorities. The yen remained close to 157.71 against the US dollar after weakening over the previous two trading sessions. Even so, it continues to trade significantly stronger than the multi-decade low it experienced last month, near 164 yen per dollar. This illustrates that while official intervention can influence markets in the short term, long-term exchange rate direction continues to depend on broader economic conditions, interest rate expectations, and investor confidence. The euro also traded with very little movement, remaining around 1.1557 against the US dollar. The British pound held steady near 1.3469, while both the Australian and New Zealand dollars showed almost no meaningful changes. These relatively stable performances across several major currencies suggest that investors are currently adopting a wait-and-see approach rather than making aggressive trading decisions. One of the most closely watched indicators in global foreign exchange markets is the US dollar index. This index measures the strength of the US dollar against a basket of 6 major international currencies. According to the latest figures, the dollar index remained near 99.65, hovering close to a 6-week low. Markets appear to be struggling to establish a clear direction for the dollar as traders carefully evaluate multiple sources of uncertainty. Among the factors contributing to this cautious atmosphere are reports surrounding a proposed US-Iran agreement, as well as anticipation ahead of important US employment data. Financial markets often react strongly to payroll reports because employment numbers can influence expectations regarding future monetary policy decisions by the US Federal Reserve. Strong employment data may support higher interest rates for longer, while weaker employment figures could encourage expectations of future rate cuts. These expectations frequently have a direct impact on the value of the US dollar. So what does this international currency story mean for followers of the Iraqi Dinar? The answer requires understanding the relationship between the global value of the US dollar and Iraq's exchange rate framework. Iraq currently operates under a managed exchange rate system where the Central Bank of Iraq plays the leading role in maintaining exchange rate stability. Unlike freely floating currencies, the Iraqi dinar does not fluctuate every day in response to international market sentiment. Instead, the central bank actively manages liquidity and foreign currency supply to maintain stability within its policy objectives. This means that even if the US dollar weakens slightly against currencies such as the Vietnamese Dong, the euro, or the Japanese yen, the Iraqi dinar does not automatically appreciate by the same amount. The Central Bank of Iraq bases its exchange rate decisions on domestic economic conditions, inflation management, foreign exchange reserves, banking sector stability, and broader government economic policy rather than daily fluctuations in global currency markets. However, that does not mean international currency movements are irrelevant for Iraq. On the contrary, global dollar trends often create an important economic backdrop that policymakers monitor closely. A weaker US dollar internationally can influence commodity prices, capital flows, and global inflation trends. Since Iraq remains heavily dependent on oil exports, any changes affecting global energy markets deserve careful attention. Oil is generally priced in US dollars. When the dollar weakens internationally, commodities including crude oil sometimes become relatively more attractive to buyers using other currencies. Although oil prices are influenced by many factors such as production levels, geopolitical developments, and global demand, currency movements can contribute to changing market dynamics over time. For Iraq, stronger or more stable oil revenues support government finances because oil exports represent the country's primary source of public income. Higher revenues can strengthen fiscal planning, improve investment capacity, and provide additional resources for infrastructure development, public services, and financial sector modernization. These improvements may indirectly support confidence in Iraq's broader economic outlook. Another important consideration is investor sentiment. Currency traders and international investors continuously evaluate economic risks across different regions. When the US dollar experiences periods of weakness or uncertainty, investors often reassess their portfolios and diversify exposure across multiple markets and asset classes. While Iraq remains a specialized market with its own unique economic structure, improving domestic reforms combined with stable external conditions can gradually enhance investor confidence over the long term. It is also worth emphasizing that today's currency movements remain relatively modest. A decline of 0.04% in the dollar's value against the Vietnamese Dong does not represent a major shift in international monetary conditions. Foreign exchange markets routinely experience these kinds of daily fluctuations as investors respond to incoming economic data, geopolitical headlines, and changes in expectations. The stability seen across several major currencies also highlights another important point. Markets currently appear to be waiting for stronger signals before making significant directional moves. Traders are focusing closely on upcoming U.S. payroll figures because labor market performance remains one of the Federal Reserve's key indicators when evaluating future interest rate policy. If future economic data were to indicate slowing economic growth or easing inflation pressures in the United States, expectations regarding interest rates could evolve further. Such developments may influence the dollar's international value. Conversely, stronger than expected economic performance could provide renewed support for the dollar. These possibilities illustrate why financial markets remain cautious rather than confident in either direction. For Iraqi Dinar followers, maintaining perspective is especially important. Headlines involving the US dollar often generate significant discussion across online communities. However, responsible analysis requires separating short-term market movements from long-term structural developments. The value and stability of the Iraqi dinar continue to depend primarily on domestic economic reforms, fiscal discipline, banking sector modernization, foreign reserve management, inflation control, and overall macroeconomic stability. The Central Bank of Iraq has consistently emphasized financial stability as one of its primary objectives. Maintaining confidence in the banking system, improving payment infrastructure, enhancing compliance with international financial standards, and supporting orderly currency markets remain essential priorities. These structural efforts generally have a much greater influence on Iraq's long-term monetary outlook than routine day-to-day fluctuations in international foreign exchange markets. Looking ahead, market participants will continue monitoring several important developments: U.S. employment reports, Federal Reserve policy decisions, inflation indicators, global energy prices, geopolitical events, and international trade conditions all have the potential to influence the broader direction of the U.S. dollar. At the same time, developments within Iraq, including economic reforms, investment initiatives, banking modernization, and fiscal management, will remain central factors for anyone following the Iraqi dinar. Short-term expectations therefore remain focused on market volatility surrounding major economic announcements rather than dramatic changes in Iraq's exchange rate policy. Investors and observers should expect normal fluctuations in global currency markets, while recognizing that Iraq's managed exchange rate system provides a degree of insulation from daily international market swings. From a longer-term perspective, continued economic diversification, responsible fiscal policy, improvements in financial governance, and sustained investment in productive sectors will likely remain among the most important drivers of Iraq's economic resilience. These structural foundations are considerably more significant than isolated daily movements in foreign exchange markets. Today's report serves as a reminder that currencies around the world are interconnected through international trade, investment flows, monetary policy, and global economic sentiment. Even a relatively small adjustment in one currency pair contributes to the larger picture that central banks, financial institutions, and market participants monitor every day. Understanding these connections helps provide better context for developments affecting the Iraqi dinar without overstating their immediate impact. As always, careful analysis requires patience, attention to verified information, and a balanced understanding of both domestic and international economic conditions. While global dollar movements are certainly worth monitoring, they should always be viewed alongside Iraq's own economic indicators and policy decisions before drawing conclusions about the future direction of the Iraqi dinar. Thank you for watching today's update. If you appreciate responsible, factual, and balanced coverage of the Iraqi dinar and Iraq's economy, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video so you never miss future updates. This content is provided for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered financial, investment, or trading advice.